Hi everybody, welcome to the Gagnon Atelier. I'm your old pal Tim Gagnon, and today we're going to continue our masterpiece devotional series from Ephesians 2:10, You Are God's Masterpiece, where I share with you a few insights about God from the mindset of an artist. You can check out part 1 and 2 by clicking here or by clicking on the links below in the description. As an artist, I've been trained to look at my surroundings in a much deeper way. Artists, we tend to scrutinize the world around us. We deconstruct it into its component parts: value, color, composition, proportions, perspective, scale, and on and on and on. Artists just look at the world differently. We study that which is beautiful and have developed specialized tools and techniques and skill sets to mirror that beauty in a never-ending pursuit to master that which can never really be mastered. It is in this passionate artistic pursuit that I believe artists like myself have a unique insight into God as creator that others might miss. Insights that I'd like to share with you in this series. So, thousands of years ago, you better get your seatbelt on because today is going to blow your mind, I promise you. So, thousands of years ago, our ancestors noticed something profound in the world around them. It's said that geometry is the only math that man didn't invent, they discovered it. In other words, man observed that geometry already existed in nature itself. So the ancients stumbled upon a unique geometric ratio, this repeating pattern that was evident in everything from a sunflower to a nautilus shell to their own faces. Moreover, if it was something that was generally accepted to be beautiful, the pattern was visible. If the pattern was not visible, it was either man-made or damaged. So our ancestors also observed that people recognized and were inexplicably attracted to this pattern. On a subconscious level, they didn't even realize what they were looking at and what they were seeing, but they were just universally attracted to that pattern. In other words, our ancient ancestors discovered a universal standard of beauty. So it wasn't long before they started applying these observations and discovering staggering technological advances along the way through the process. For the Greeks, geometry wasn't math. Math. But for the Greeks, it wasn't that. It was sacred, spiritual. It was a philosophical pursuit that had far-reaching implications into every aspect of their worldview. The Parthenon and the Acropolis are just the Acropolis, rather, I can't even say it. Those are two of the most famous ancient Greek monuments that were constructed purposely according to this mathematical principle that we're talking about today. So, as their understanding of geometry grew, a few overwhelming implications became clear. Plato is quoted as saying, God geometricizes continually. Or more aptly put, God's a mathematician. Geometry is the math that defines the cosmos. It's the blueprint for creation, and behind every blueprint is an architect. Every design has a designer. And it was in this philosophical conclusion that the words sacred geometry were first coined. They may have removed God from public schools in the 60s, but wherever and whenever geometry is taught, without ever realizing it, God's greatest evangelist, creation, is speaking loud and clear. For this reason, the geometric ratio pattern that I've described as the universal standard of beauty is actually called divine proportions. Although it's also known as the golden ratio, the golden spiral, pi, the Fibonacci sequence, or the rule of thirds. You may have heard it called one of those things, but all of that is talking about the same thing. It's pretty cool. So, with the fall of the Roman Empire, sadly, many of these principles were lost to civilization until the Renaissance. The Renaissance literally means rebirth. And it was a rebirth or a revival of Greek philosophies, Greek science, and Greek art. And Greek math was a big part of that. So during this time, by reapplying these geometric principles, architects once again started taking quantum leaps forward. Cathedrals especially grew stronger, lighter, and taller than ever imagined possible. Renaissance artists took this mathematical philosophy to the extreme and applied its principles to all of their designs with literal religious fervor. Of them all, Leonardo da Vinci is probably the most devoted to the practice, even collaborating with renowned mathematician Luca Pacioli on his book De Divina Proportione. Probably butchered that, but basically in English it means On the Divine Proportion, which was published in 1509. So they wrote that book a long time ago. But they wrote a whole book on this mathematical principle. And Leonardo's compositions are painted over intricately complex geometric frameworks. You can look at that in our devotional series part 2. You will see pictures of the Mona Lisa, for example, describing that. And of course, we'll show that a little bit here too. But every aspect of his designs were carefully placed with the utmost care and predetermined considerations based off of the ratios. And he was not alone. Michelangelo did it, Raphael did it, Botticelli did it. Countless others applied this ratio to their art. And the fruits of this labor birthed, let's be honest, the greatest masterpieces in history. So, what exactly is this universal standard of beauty? What is it? And what does it have to do with God? What does it have to do with us and our relationship with God? What does it have to do with artists? What does it have to do with all of that stuff? Well, as we've already discovered, the architect of the universe, God, incorporates geometry into his template for creation, and it's within that framework, this mathematical ratio is there that defines beauty. So here's what it looks like as a math equation. Let's just show it to you, okay? The equation is this. It's 1, 2, 1.618. Now, I just thought, what the heck does that mean? Well, let me show it to you in another way. A plus B is to A as A is to B. And you're probably still going, I don't understand. It's okay. We find this ratio throughout nature. This ratio is in everything from a strand of DNA all the way up to a spiral galaxy. Sunflowers arrange their seeds according to this ratio. Branching trees use it to maximize sun exposure. Pine cones and pineapples are shaped according to this ratio. Roses arrange their petals in this sequence. Ram's horns, nautilus shells, bird eggs, ferns, hurricanes. The list goes on forever. From the smallest, tiniest thing we know of to the biggest things in all of creation. The sequence is there. And if it's beautiful, it is there. And the implications to that fact are absolutely, profoundly staggering. Is there any wonder why the ancients saw this phenomenon and immediately attributed it to intelligent design? I don't think so. If you ever needed evidence of the existence of a divine creator, this is about as strong of an argument as anyone can make. You know, it reminds me of Romans 1:20. This is what it says. It says, "For ever since the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky. Through everything God made, they can clearly see his invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse for not knowing God." Wow. That's pretty powerful right there. So here we have this inexplicable pattern, this ratio that literally defines beauty and harmony throughout the physical universe. If humans truly are, as Ephesians 2:10 declares, the masterpieces of creation, then this ratio should at least be evident. Within the human form, this is where it gets exciting, because the Bible also says that man is created in the image of God. So within the human form, we find this ratio not once, not twice, but literally hundreds and hundreds of times. Your face alone has it over 20 times. Some people would even say it has it in hundreds of times just in your face alone. The shape of your ear is a perfect example of the golden spiral. Every bone in your hand has this ratio in relation to the bone connected to it. So this bone is 1, and this bone is 1.618 bigger than this bone, and this bone is 1.618 bigger than this bone. Every bone in your hand has that ratio to your arm, to your shoulders, across your body. It's unbelievable. Your dentist has a special, next time you go to the dentist, you ask him to show you these things. He has a special tool called golden calipers, because this ratio is in your teeth. How cool is that? All right. And finally, and this is going to sound silly, but you can stand up and do this. Your belly button divides your body exactly along this ratio. From here to your belly button is 1, and from your belly button down to your toes is 1.618. Exactly. Put your finger in your belly button. That is the divine proportions in action. I mean, it's just wild. It blows my mind. So your body displays this universal standard of beauty more than anything else in God's entire creation. A hurricane spins in that spiral. A spiral galaxy spirals in that ratio once. But you, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, screaming, "God made you beautiful. You're beautiful. And God made you that way." You know, we all feel self-conscious sometimes, don't we? I mean, let's face it, body image, body shaming, these are very real things, and more often than not, self-inflicted. We're our own worst critics, aren't we? I mean, we look in the mirror, we tear ourselves to shreds. Maybe you're guilty of that. But God doesn't see you that way. God doesn't see me that way. And I'm almost totally bald. But God sees you, God sees me as his masterpiece. The most beautiful thing in all creation. Think about that. That's pretty wild. He looks at you and he sees beauty. Just as Leonardo da Vinci painstakingly composed his masterpieces upon the principles of sacred geometry, your body is literally framed around the Creator's universal, sacred standard of beauty. So the next time you look in the mirror and you want to look down on yourself, you take your finger and you stick it in your belly button and you shout loud and you shout proud that you are fearfully and wonderfully made. You really are God's masterpiece. All right, guys, that's all the time we have today. This is part 3 of our You Are God's Masterpiece devotional series. I hope that you have been enjoying this little Bible study that we've been doing, looking at the heart of God through the mindset of an artist, maker to maker. So if you're a maker, I hope this has been a blessing to you. If you're a creator, I hope that this has been a blessing to you. And if you consider yourself an artist, just remember that the artist of artists has made you, and he loves you, and he thinks you're the most beautiful thing in all of creation. And he wants to have a beautiful, special relationship with you. So, as always, guys, just remember, God loves you. So does your old pal Tim. We'll talk to you next time.